Ayush here, and I welcome you to an online module of a skill development initiative called Karoshiksha. The sector that we will be covering today is the banking sector module. Before I move on to the agenda of this module and the overview and the points that we will be covering, I'd like to touch upon Karoshiksha as a skill development initiative. Number one, and number two, the goal, the end goal that I have in mind with regards to covering this particular module. So, just to give you a heads up, there are two critical points that I'd like to cover at this stage. This entire module will probably take 20-25 minutes to cover. So instead of uploading a full drawn out 20-25 minute video clip, in from the perspective of engagement and from the perspective of ease of convenience, I'm going to be breaking this entire module down into probably X number of short video clips. So if there are 3-4 broad topics that I'm going to be covering in this module, I will break it down into 3 to 4 short 4-5 minute type video clips. That's the first critical factor I'd like to cover. The second critical factor I'd like to cover is that this is the very first time I am creating some content on the learning and education front, and I really don't possess the technical skill set or the experience to create proper online modules or to cover them well and to instruct them well over a video. This is the very first time I'm even covering some information over a video. So pardon me if the construct, if the structure is a little haywire, a little off, but I hope that whatever critical points that I have in mind, I'm able to communicate that to you, and that there are certain key takeaways which can be of benefit to you. So before we move on to the agenda and the introduction of this module, I'd just like to touch upon this skill development initiative called Karoshiksha. The goal is basically to create a value proposition for job aspirants and to create a value proposition for employers. In terms of a job aspirant, the value proposition that we're looking to create is to help students at an undergrad level, right, kind of figure out what line of work that they're interested in and give them a readily available database that will help them understand what are the 3 to 4 key skill sets that they need to develop in order to enhance that particular metric called employability, or in colloquial terms, to basically enhance the probability of them breaking into that industry. From an employer's perspective, basically trying to create some sort of a time and a monetary proposition. There is this graph that I have made over here to kind of help you better understand this. Again, pardon the lack of structure and the lack of finesse in this content. But anyways, on the x-axis, you have time, and on the y-axis, you have productivity. Now visualize a student who's just graduated from a college, right, and is entering into, let's say, the banking sector, right? Typically, if you move along, let's say, from time equal to 0 to time equal to n is equal to 6 months, the first 6 months that any fresher spends in a job, or 6 months is just a hypothetical ballpark number, but the first X number of months that are spent in a firm as a fresher, the firm is investing in you. The firm is investing to develop your skill sets. The firm is investing to teach you how to use certain tools. The firm is investing to communicate certain key concepts and terminology so that you understand how the module works. So there are a lot of these training modules that you will be subjected to. In those 6 months, that firm that has employed you is not actually generating a lot of monetary benefit out of you, because in those first 6 months you're going to be learning, so they're going to be spending on you. After 6 months, when you've learned everything, then you will start creating your own analysis, you'll start creating reports, you'll start working on deliverables, and the outcome of which will be that you're generating monetary benefit for the firm. So that monetary benefit or any sort of value for a firm comes only after the training period is over. Now, from the perspective of this graph, let's just assume that the typical time taken to train a candidate is, let's say, 6 months. The value proposition that Karoshiksha is trying to create for employers is that, hey, you know what? We're going forward to students and we're letting them understand the skill sets that they require to do the job in this particular industry well, right? And we're trying to see to it that they're already working on it and that they're already learning it, so that when they enter your firm at time or n equal to 0, right? If a typical candidate takes 6 months to come up to a particular productivity level of X as marked on the y-axis because of the the exposure to a skill development initiative. Because the candidate is focusing on skill development at a macro level, he's able to jump up to that same level of productivity at n is equal to 3 months instead of n is equal to 6 months. So there is 3 months of time which is getting saved for an employer. It's taking lesser time for a particular candidate to jump up to the same level of productivity, and that's a tremendous amount of time and monetary value proposition that's being created. So yes, broadly, this is the goal of the skill development initiative, and I'm happy to take feedback on it. Please feel free to drop in a message, connect with me.